Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. As harvest rolls on across the country, there is a lot of big, heavy equipment out in fields right now. It could be causing compaction. We're going to talk about how we solve compaction issues on our farm today.
Well, one of the most important things you can do right after harvest is get started with your soil testing program. We're going to talk today about how you can do this yourself simply, easily, and inexpensively on your farm.
Another job you'll need to take care of right away is controlling our weed of the week if it's out in your fields. We'll talk about stopping this difficult to control weed on today's program. But first, here's our Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
How can you control weeds in your lawn, in your garden, or in your shelter belt? We'll talk about that today during our Farm Basics time.
All throughout the year, Brian and I get questions about how do I control this weed in this very sensitive situation with a crop that there's nothing really safe to spray around, or right next to some flowers. Those are difficult calls in the middle of the growing season. However, we are afforded some opportunities in the early spring and late fall to control tough weeds even in very sensitive spots. Let's start with the garden, for example. Let's say that you've got some perennial weeds in an area that is going to be your garden for next year, but all your annual crops are done for the season. Guess what? Now you've got some tools at your disposal because you don't have to worry about hurting things. Now, if you've got perennial crops out in the garden, yes, you absolutely have to be careful for them. But if you've got annual crops, like for me, I like to raise tomatoes, no problem. I'm starting out with new plants each season. I can go into those areas with Roundup or with some real tough herbicides to control perennial weeds. And Roundup is my herbicide of choice for perennials because it's going to move down into the root system and kill that weed, root and all.
I love how Darren talks about Roundup. Yes, it's a great product. Here's my number one concern. When is that first killing frost coming? If you wait and you spray after that first killing frost, you don't have nearly as good of activity, even on a perennial weed. You might say, well, it doesn't kill the perennial. No, it doesn't, but it kills a lot of the top growth. And that's a real concern because the only way that Roundup is going to get down into the root system and kill that plant once and for all is it has to get absorbed by the leaves up above. So you not only have to get the Roundup into the plant, it then has to translocate or move from there down into that root system. So just make sure you're doing this early enough in the fall. I usually recommend people do this 1 to 2 weeks before their normal first hard killing frost.
All right, let's talk about lawns because we've got warm season grasses, cool season grasses. This time of year, the cool season grasses are really starting to dominate things, but also some of those weeds that can be a problem in the spring and the fall. Fall's a great time to control weeds in lawns because where we're at, we're going to get a freeze up in a little while. We're going to kill those weeds off. The lawn is thriving. It'll choke out anything else that comes. And then by next spring, we've got no weeds and we can start clean again. We like to use products like 2,4-D, for example. I prefer using something like Freelex that has 2,4-D choline in it. We've got much less risk of any kind of off-target vapor movement, those kinds of things. Been very happy with that. Others may use something like dicamba or other mixes. For human safety, I like 2,4-D or Freelex the best in this type of situation to control things like dandelions, clovers, and other weeds.
The reason why we talk so much about 2,4-D in the fall, and you might say, well, I don't have a lot of weeds, it looks like a lot of the top growth is dying off, it's no big deal. No, go hit it anyway, because now is the time of the year when you don't have to worry about dropping leaves off trees, you don't have to worry about killing the flowers next door or whatever, so now is absolutely the time to spray. And it's the same thing when I start thinking about shelter belts. If you're going to go out and control weeds in a shelter belt, yes, we know that 2,4-D or something like Darren suggested, Freelex, the new type of 2,4-D without all the volatility risk, that's a great product on a lot of these weeds out there, whether they are annual, biennial, winter annual, or even for that matter perennial. Sometimes 2,4-D isn't too bad on the perennials in that shelter belt situation when you want to leave the grass. You don't want to kill everything like you would with Roundup. So that's all great. It's just you would like to see the leaves drop off the trees first, then go out and spray. Then there's a lot less risk to those trees. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there isn't still some level of risk in hurting trees, especially very small ones, but generally speaking, we don't find that 2,4-D has any long-term effects on trees.
And I like the 2,4-D choline formulation. So check the labels, see which ones are labeled in your state and your particular use area. Maybe it's lawns, gardens, shelter belts like we talked about today. It could be other areas, non-crop areas, pasture, whatever. If you're trying to control weeds, we do like the 2,4-D choline. That's our preferred 2,4-D. And just check the labels of the various products that it's offered in to see which one works for you.
One of the weeds you may find in your lawn, in your garden, or in your shelter belt is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to stop it coming up later in the show.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the system that makes the difference. The system I put to work, because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
In today's market, growers deserve products that bring true, measurable value to their farm. My name is Wade Barnes, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Farmer's Edge. We believe the only way to understand value is to experience it yourself. Try our integrated data solutions with no commitments until May 2018. I know we can make a difference on your farm. Your data is your asset. Own it and use it.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seedbed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on: Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
We started utilizing the Dual React system this year. You can adjust your speed and it automatically adjusts your sprayer tips. So you can slow down and you aren't building up huge droplets, or you can speed up and you're not throwing a mist that's drifting.
Hypro, helping you spray better. N, P, and K. They're critical for a healthy crop. Improve their availability and your yield potential with QuickRoots Microbial Seed Inoculant. QuickRoots technology contains 2 powerful microbes that can help improve access to key nutrients, and it's available in an easy-to-apply formulation. Simply mix it directly into your dry planter box and your seeds will be covered. Learn more at monsantobioag.com/quickroots.
How do you reduce or even prevent compaction on your farm? Well, there's a lot that goes into that. Today, we're just going to talk about one big aspect, and that is deep tillage. We get lots of questions about this each year.
There are a number of different ways to do deep tillage. You can certainly turn all the soil over and really start over again. But to me, there are some inherent risks with that. Your ground could be super soft next spring. You're more prone to erosion, and the list goes on and on. What I really prefer to do is use a straight shank and just cut through those compaction layers without turning everything over. This is a process that we call zone building, because we're really doing tillage just in certain zones, and then ideally we'll plant right over those zones so our roots have really no distraction as they go down, no disturbance. They can just head right on down through the compacted layers and get deep in our soil.
All right, so just to go back to what Darren originally said and that turning over or rolling over of soil, the big thing that concerns me is now you're bringing your subsoil up and that becomes a topsoil, and eventually that's all fine. Over a 30-year, 50-year process, you can turn it all into topsoil if you want, with an awful lot of work. But if we're trying to farm this year or this next year and we want the very best crop, it's usually not a real great idea to bring your subsoil up and put that on your topsoil, especially if you're going down, let's say, 10 inches, 12 inches, 14 inches deep. So what we would rather see you do is, like Darren said, kind of leave that soil mostly in place, but That said, we do know that there are compaction layers below ground. What we would first suggest you do is identify where the compaction layers are at on your farm. If you've done the same type of tillage over the years, or let's say you've been no-till for 15 years, just go out there and start digging around, start poking around a little bit, and you'll learn a lot. What Darren likes to do a lot of times is just go out there with a rod or a spade or something like that and just poke down as he goes throughout the field. What I personally like is digging a couple of root pits around the farm, and then I have a visual idea of what's really been happening for quite a while. What I'm getting at here is if I dig a 4-foot deep pit, and let's call it 10 feet wide, I can really see where my roots have been growing, what the different colors are in soil, and I can also take a knife into the side of that pit and just run that knife upward, and a lot of times I'll find a shallow compaction layer at somewhere in the range of 4 to 8 inches deep, and a deeper compaction layer that's often in the 10 to 18 inch range. So ideally, what we'd like to do is go below both levels of compaction if at all possible. Once you've identified where your deepest level of compaction is at, that's the target that we're shooting for. So let's say it's 18 inches, you'd like to be down at 19 or 20 inches deep when you're running some type of deep tillage out there to bust up all the compaction.
Kind of a happy medium of how to find those compaction layers. I like to use a post hole digger, then you can just reach your arm in and do the same thing Brian's talking about. But when he's talking about running a knife up through there, I'd like that knife blade to be at least 3 or 4 inches long so you do get some resistance as you hit those zones. And if you're getting resistance with yourself pulling a knife through, imagine a tiny little root system trying to get through those compacted layers. It's a big deal. So we want to get those addressed out on the farm. And you think about, well, what about that deep one? What's it really stopping me from? Hey, if you get in an extended drought, like this year in central Illinois, a place that you would think, oh, they get rain all the time in Illinois. No, they went a month without any rain in some areas of Illinois. Well, that's a big time drought for there. And if you went down in the soil, you could go down in the top 14, 16 inches, and it's really dry. So you do want to make sure that you're getting through that lower level of compaction as well, so your roots can get down to the moisture, but also so moisture is free to come back up in your soil.
It's very possible that you could have roots going down 4 to 6 feet deep with many different crops once you break up these compaction layers. But another thing I'll go back to that Darren said earlier is making your soil really soft. If you do full-scale tillage and just completely eliminate the compaction layers, well, next spring, if it's a little bit damp, or even if it's not, it's possible that you might start sinking a little bit in your field. That's not real great either. So what we like with these straight shanks and narrow points and going every 30 inches is now in between those spots, in between those slots we'll call them, we still have a relatively firm base. We've done this many times in the past, dug root pits the year later, and we found that roots will find those slots. So roots will figure out, well, let's face it, they don't figure anything out. They just grow based on taking the path of least resistance. Well, where's the least resistance? It's where we've eliminated the compaction. So you'll find roots, if you start digging around, that start migrating over to those areas, and then they'll go down through those prior compacted zones in the slots.
The other question you may have is, how often do you have to do this? Is this something you have to do every year? No, you definitely don't have to do it every year. We've got a lot of fields where we've gone out every 30 inches, built a zone like that, come back a year or a couple years later, moved over halfway in between those zones, done it again, and that's been the last time we've touched that ground other than some strip tillage, which is done at a much shallower depth. Other fields where they're more compaction prone, maybe it's some low ground that's wetter, those types of things.
Or where we drive a lot, like on the end rows.
Sure. Some of those areas, we have to be in there a little bit more often, so you just have to make those determinations on your farm. The other thing is controlling traffic patterns, and that's why we're talking about this right in the middle of harvest, and for some, right at the beginning of corn harvest. If you're going to be driving big, heavy grain carts out there and trucks out into the field, control where that traffic goes. If you're just driving everywhere you want, willy-nilly out in the middle of the field, well, you're going to have compaction all over the place, and those are patterns that are going to show up with your satellite imagery or your aerial maps or whatever the case may be. They're going to show up for many years down the road.
Well, again, there are a lot of things we could talk about when it comes to compaction. The biggest thing that we wanted to cover today is, yes, there is a way to not necessarily eliminate compaction, but to work with the compaction that you've got out there to get roots deeper. We call it zone building. Some people just call it deep tillage with a straight shank narrow point.
One other problem we see out in fields right now is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to control it later in the show.
The desire to bring real-world solutions to growers' difficult production challenges has led Bayer to introduce Credenz, our national brand of soybean seed, backed by years of research in smart genetics. Smart genetics is based on 4 concepts. State-of-the-art breeding allows Bayer to identify key traits and characteristics that bring value and protection to your soybean production situation. Next is herbicide-tolerant traits. The flexibility of multiple trait platforms allows growers to pick the most effective weed control system for their farm. Next is tailored varieties. With a robust portfolio, Credenz offers many solutions for difficult situations that you may experience, along with our best-in-class agronomic service team to support variety selection. And last is ongoing innovation. Bayer is continuing to invest in ways to improve yields and increase the profitability on your farm.
Worthington Ag Parts, quality people, affordable parts, helping folks work the land, all ag equipment parts, for your machine, your tractors and combines are your extra set of hands, and day after day we'll keep you running, your ag partner, from sun up to sundown. Worthington Ag Parts, quality people, affordable parts.
We love the quality, we love the construction. We're looking forward to working with Morton in the future.
They have this down to a science. They know exactly what you want. They know how to make it happen. It's an easy process.
I would definitely recommend Morton. From the first time I met the salesman to the last nail that the crew put in, it has been a positive and professional experience.
I'm so happy I found Morton because they just make the job so easy.
Find the building of your dreams at mortonbuildings.com.
The buzz on this line is probably the best in 10 years, both in soil and in the plant. Joe, you've been doing this for a while. What's your take?
Well, Don, you take a player like High Energy N, 3 forms of nitrogen, plus sulfur and iron, with slow release technology, he's making plays all season long.
Oh, look at his numbers. He's getting it done.
But don't forget about in response. This guy's designed for a quick release nitrogen.
It's looking like another championship season for Agro Liquid.
One of the most important things you can do on your farm is get a good soil test. The reason why is because the odds are pretty high. You invest a fair amount of money in fertilizer. Well, how do you know how to best invest those fertilizer dollars? You don't unless you have some data. Getting good soil test data is incredibly important. So just a few years ago, we developed a simple, easy way for you to do this yourself. Well, this year we are launching a new and improved version of the Ag PhD Soil Test app. You can simply go to agphdsoils.com to learn more, and we wanted to talk just a little bit more about that as well today.
All right, a couple great things about the Ag PhD Soil Test app. First, online, you can create your fields very simply. You can pick on your fields, just find where they're at on the map, pick your field, boom. You've got a field all set up. You can set grid points on your map just like that. It's very simple, and when you go out and pull samples out of your field, your GPS right on your smartphone or your iPad can take you right to the point so you know where to pull them from and you know how to label those samples to send them into the lab. That part is really simple. Now, once you get that data, like Brian said, it can be really powerful if you put it into, say, a variable rate prescription. You can build your own variable rate prescriptions for free right off the app. So you take that soil test data, you know right where it came from in the field, boom, you can put your parameters in for your high and low rates on fertilizer and go. It's simple to use, very easy to get started, very quick to pull samples. Anybody can do it. Even Brian can do it on his farm.
Well, I don't know, Darren. That seems too difficult. No, of course not. It's really easy and really simple. And here's the best part about the whole deal. We set this up and we did all this work for free because we want to help you. So it costs nothing more than if you're just running your normal soil tests through Midwest Labs 26 bucks a sample, $5.20 an acre. We're right about that same ballpark, same kind of money. If you're running 5-acre grids, that's your cost. So there's nothing extra in it for you. Very simple, very easy. You're going to get complete soil analysis, not just NP and K. You're going to learn everything you need for that soil.
So download the Ag PhD Soil Test app on your smartphone or tablet, and then go to agphdsoils.com to get set up and started.
When you're out there doing your soil sampling, you may see some of our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Dow AgroSciences. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Weed of the Week is henbit.
Now, visually, you're going to see purple flowers this time of year on henbit, but the thing that I would say is you don't even need to see it, and I know that I'm in a henbit field because I can smell it. Henbit is in the mint family, and it has a distinct and noticeable odor when you go into a patch of henbit.
Well, with henbit, we're usually talking winter annual, and as soon as I start thinking about that, I go, uh-oh, if I don't get it under control in the fall, I may have a big problem come spring. Now, that said, a lot of times we're dealing with this in the spring crops. So we want to talk a little bit about fall control as well as spring control. In the fall, a lot of times if it's just idle ground in the fall after harvest, you can run out there with dicamba, 2,4-D, Roundup, something like that, and you should have good success.
All right, but here's the thing you have to watch out for. You have to get great coverage on this weed because it does root down from the nodes. So all of a sudden you've got more roots out there in that patch than just one here and one there. So when we're talking about henbit, I really like the residual products. Sharpen is probably not the best thing on henbit. Now, if you use a high rate of Sharpen, that's going to help a lot. But in some crops, you can. I like Authority MTZ out in front of soybeans.
And Treflan Sonliner Prowl with it, so really our 3-pre program.
Yeah, the 3-pre program is great. In wheat, you do have Sharpen as the option, but you're going to be tank mixing something with it to get added burn down.
Yeah, maybe Roundup or Prepare or something.
Come back post-emerge in wheat. I really like Husky. Coming back in soybeans, if you've got Roundup or Liberty, that's certainly going to be a great option for you.
Or
but also you could use Pursuit or Raptor if that would work in your area, and tank mix in some Flex Star or Cobra for added kick. In corn, post-emerge, I really like Status. Pre-emerge, I really like Sure Start and Triple Flex. They work well. There's lots of options pre in corn.
Yeah, the whole thing with the henbit here, it's not like it's that difficult to control, but you want to get after it when it's small, get after it early, and you should have good success on your farm.
That's all time we have for this week's Weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Let's face it, Joe. Some of these guys aren't easy to play. Biologicals are expensive. Humates and plant growth regulators are messy.
Yeah, but Agro Liquid has 4 new players that have really eliminated those problems. The Primer Grow line has helped their team realize the benefits.
Wait, so season-long nutrition and optimized yields while creating a biologically active soil?
That's right. Primer Grow line is a fantastic addition to Agro Liquid's stellar team.
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seed bed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on, Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
In life, when you put the max in, you get the max out. It's no different for your corn, which is why 40 years of effort have gone into proving that Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers do more than just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize nitrogen, so your corn gives you the max in return.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the system that makes the difference. The system I put to work. Because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
The agricultural use of lime sure seems to be on the rise based on conversations I've had with farmers this year. I'll discuss lime and how to apply it in today's Iron Talk. Raising a low pH back up into the 6s has been a great return on investment on farms across the country. The other reason liming is on the rise is simply to build the calcium levels in various soils, regardless of pH. Whether it's to loosen up a tight, high magnesium clay soil or to balance out fertility levels in general, calcium and especially lime is in high demand again this year. Unfortunately, you may need a lime spreader to get the job done. The chain and paddle drive on regular spinner spreaders just can't move the product, unless of course you're using pelletized lime. That would be your option if you want to use the equipment that's already on your farm. Now for most farms, spreading lime may mean hiring someone to spread it. On our farm, we use a water treatment plant lime from a nearby city, and the city is contracted with a professional to spread the lime for the farmers who are using it. We're also hearing livestock manure spreaders with vertical beaters could be used if managed closely. No matter how you get it done, accurately spreading lime can provide a big benefit in the right soils. You'll need grid or zone soil sampling to target the lime rates and applications to fit the areas of the field that will benefit from it. Also, while you don't need tillage to get lime to work, tillage can speed up the impact it has on your soil. So if you're doing tillage, just remember it doesn't have to be super deep, as most of the plant's root system will be in the top 6 inches of soil, and that's generally the area you need to impact most commonly with the lime. For no-till guys, don't wait. Get the lime out there now so rainfall can move it in the soil and begin the reaction you're looking for. That's all for today's Iron Talk on lime, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we want to invite you to tune in to the Ag PhD radio show. We're on Sirius XM channel 147 at 2 p.m. Central each weekday.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
There are as many living things in a handful of soil as there are people on planet Earth. But what do they do, and how do farmers work with them to raise successful crops? Beneficial bacteria, fungi, and other microbial creatures are being used in the production of nearly every crop. To learn more, visit rnmf.org.